Number 84, Najarala. I like Najarala. My favorite part is that if you break the scales on his neck, its sonic boom attack will actually cause it to stagger. And I think that's pretty cool. Never realized how big Najarala was until it showed up in a Doramboros quest. It's bigger than one of the most hefty brutes. Even weirder is how low tier it is. Najarala definitely needs to come back and get a power boost. It's beautiful. It's pretty difficult for its tier. Nice to have another fairly tough paralysis monster. But considering the sound theme, the amount of health points, the threat he presents, the largeness of him, this thing deserves its own theme, absolutely. I love the concept of Najarala, a giant snake that can fire its scales out and then detonate them by making high frequency sounds to stun its prey. The problem with him is that he is not all that difficult to fight. Insect Glaive easily destroys him. He is definitely a monster I'd love to see return, but he needs to be worked on quite a bit so he doesn't just get absolutely wrecked by the hunter. 4 stars. Design, color scheme, I got nothing to say about it. It's perfect. I'm surprised you fight him this early on though. He seems way too weak for his capabilities. A sound-based rattlesnake is an awesome concept that I wish was utilized more. Now, it's been some years, but from my memory, he mostly spams his coiling move. He also suffers from the same problems Gammoth, Doramboros, and Plesioth do. The maps were simply too small for him. I hope he comes back because Wild seems like the perfect game for big monsters, and I'm confident that they can give Najarala the love he deserves. He should be on the same level as Rakna-Kadaki in terms of power, and we need more snake wyverns. My hope still is that Wild's flagship is one. I have my doubts though. Number 83, Acidic Glavenus. I love when monster subspecies are changed in such a unique way. And we're not even talking about the design. They could have easily just changed the fire element to water or thunder or dragon, but they changed it to defense down. That's the level of creativity I love in this series. Amazing monster. Absolutely incredible and severely underrated. I could go on for ages about Acidic because he's probably my favorite brute wyvern, but I'll try to keep it short. Acidic is a masterclass in gameplay design, a shining star that defines the genre of monster I call dodge or die. Although the hunt may feel like an overwhelming wall at first, with this huge range of swift combos, it doesn't take a genius to recognize this hunt is all about timing. Acidic's hunt is all about learning his combos carefully and successfully predicting where he'll attack in order to create the openings you'll need to win. In essence, he's Iceborne's dodging lesson, similar to Odogaron in low rank, and the monster that separates the bum rushers from the great players. He's also just looks amazing and turns the samurai vibes up to 11. Absolutely peak 5 out of 5. They somehow gave a monster with a sword tail, a subspecies that unironically uses its sword tail more than usual. One of the most fun fights in Iceborne. He's fast, fluid, and the palette swap looks beautiful. Acidic was always an enigma to me. It just felt random, and I rarely ever heard anyone talk about it, so I never knew what to think about it. The design is great. I much prefer the dark greens and lighter blues to the Regulus palettes. Acidic is the longsword to the Regulus greatsword. This already makes the fight vastly different and makes Acidic arguably one of the few subspecies that can actually kind of stand on its own. Defense down is a fun and underused ailment, and Acidic uses it very well. Acidic is one of the best subspecies and what I believe is the golden standard of them. 5 out of 5. I really like Acidic Glavenus. Yes, his colors are a little bit dull and less interesting than the original, but I love how he uses his sword tail in comparison to how normal Glavenus uses his. I think fighting him is much more fun. 5 stars. Number 82, Dodogama. The koala of the Elder's Recess. They're cute and pathetic in an endearing way, and I have no idea how they've survived for so long. 5 stars. My reason? It's Dodogama. Jokes aside, I love Dodogama as a monster in the Elder's Recess because of how much of a non-threat he is. And the fact that he's carved out his own little life in there is just kind of flat out impressive. Best way I can put it is, Dodogama is a pug or a bulldog that has managed to survive and thrive in a world run by pit bulls and Rottweilers, all without losing his charm. Is his fight amazing? No. Do you think I care? Absolutely not. I admit I never really understood why people were obsessed with Great Jaggi until I faced my first Dodogama. If Nerscylla laid the foundation and the Celtis pair post-Queen built the structure, it was Dodogama who cut the ribbon on my love for the weirdo club of monsters. I absolutely adore Dodogama. He's just this adorable, chubby guy with this massive underbite that harmlessly eats rocks and vibes with the Elder's Recess. Fight-wise, he's just okay. His ability to inflict Blast Blight is kinda cool, and he's got a projectile attack that can be surprisingly accurate, which can get a little annoying at times. Honestly, I just kinda like hanging around with him while I'm on an expedition, since he's pretty docile until you attack him. Whenever I do have to hunt him, I usually just capture him instead. I feel bad when I kill him. He's a very safe monster. The design is charming as a fat lizard with zero thoughts, but then his fight just kinda exists. Yes, he's supposed to be a relaxing high-rank entry fight, but all he does is either spit globs of molten rock or charge at ya, or just kinda flop around. There's not much interesting when Uragaan and Lavasioth have entire zones dedicated to them, and Dodogama just kinda roams around without changing anything during his fight. 5 stars, the best boy, end of. Okay, but for real, I like Dodogama a lot, and I stand by the 5-star statement. He's cute and has a lot of meme potential, which is always good. And it's nice to have a volcanic monster that's a little bit lower tier and helps fill out the map, and he's just fun. His fight isn't crazy and his gear is crap, but I still like what Dodogama brings to the game. His ecology and how he survives in the volcano and eating rocks is just fun to learn about. Number 81. Great Maccao. This was my first introductory monster, and he certainly left a lasting impression. Simple enough to ease you into the hunt, but aggressive enough to not be a complete pushover. He has a very fun theme and very vibrant, endearing design. Love the raptor kangaroo. Starting off strong, 5 stars. The best raptor and the best beginner monster in the franchise. It's a damn kangaroo with feathers. Never did I have such a great time with a fight. I remember vividly how difficult it was for me to breathe the first time I was fighting him. I laughed so hard you could not believe it. Not a single other monster made me smile so much. It has so much personality for a beginner monster. And the fact that he is one of the best soundtracks I've heard in my life dedicated to him is simply the best. I don't care what it takes, I want him back, be it in mainline or in stories. Definitely in my top 20. It is a fantastic introductory monster. It's goofy, it's vibrant, all around fun with a fitting theme. I am begging for Wilds to bring this silly goober back. Please. The best dog wyvern, and I'd say best raptor, period. The creativity on display with Great Maccao is so nice and refreshing. The other dogs are pretty basic, but Great Maccao is very fun to fight. Great Maccao is basically Velocidrome perfected. He jumps around and plays the positioning game better. He has more style and more flavor. He acts in a pack the best out of all the raptors. The first really new great version of a monster with a brand new moveset with a bunch of fun attacks he can do with his tail that hit pretty hard for the point that he shows up in the game. Also, I love that you can knock him out of his tail hop attack, although I wish he did more with his pack, even though I do like that they can abandon him if you break his head. Also, he has a really fun original soundtrack. Kinda loses its effects once it starts to play for a lot of the other great bird wyverns, but whatever. Number 80. Our next entry goes to the Fight History Aficionado. Covered by Heavy Wings, we have Narwa the Allmother.
So why do I like Narwa the Allmother? To me, she's one of the more satisfying final bosses. She has a lot of different fast, hard-hitting attacks that can be tricky to dodge, and when she starts doing them back to back, the fights can get really intense. But it never feels unfair. It's the right kind of speed and difficulty for me. Despite flying, Narwa never stays too far above the ground, which means her critical weak points are usually available, especially after an attack. I especially like the lore behind her, the music, as well as her gear's functionality. Overall, a fantastic monster, and a personal favourite. 5 stars, no question. Narwa the Allmother is absolutely fantastic. Adding the rich blue tones of Ibushi's colours into Narwa's bright yellows and oranges makes for a gorgeous aesthetic. In addition, I already enjoyed the base Narwa fight. Allmother amps that up with some tricks from Ibushi, gets some totally new stuff, and remixes old moves in interesting ways. The phase transitions are also more eventful, without dragging a bunch of siege weapons up all the time, making it feel less like a checklist. The super attack with the spinning Dragonators is a lot of fun too. I'm also a huge fan of how Magnamalo, and in repeat fights the other elders, jumps into the fray, giving the strong indication that Magnamalo is what has kept the Narwa/Ibushi species in check all these years. It's a great fight, with stellar presentation and the second best story boss fight in 5th gen. As a bonus, the music is also phenomenal. My favourite part about this fight is the soundtrack. Hearing Hinoa and Minato singing separately in Ibushi and Narwa's fight, only to hear them together during the beautiful and dramatic Allmother fight, really did it for me. Then the transition to Proof of a Hero after Maggie leaves and Allmother gets powered up, bro. 5 stars for music alone. G-Rank Allmother is one of my all-time favourite fights in the series. She is very challenging, her design and OST are absolutely peak, and the story bits are cool even if the whole twin possession stuff is a bit weird, but I can forgive stuff like that coming from an Elder Dragon. Personal top 3, 5 stars. It's very cinematic, especially when she eats Ibushi. That's an intimidating thing to witness, and I'd say it's definitely the best of the 3 Storm Serpents overall. I've started very late with Rise, I still have a lot of Sunbreak ahead of me, and I already heard a little bit about Narwa and Ibushi way before I started, and how one selfishly murders the other for power. Finally reaching that point, I was pleasantly surprised to see a, to me, obvious heroic sacrifice to give their young a chance. It fits better with everything the twins told during their resonance with them. She's not my favourite final boss, but she's up there. The combination between the wind and lightning powers works well. The ultimate attack made me panic quite a bit the first time around, trying to get away. Narwa's gorgeous with the cooler colours mixed in with her oranges and yellows, and her form now strongly reminds me of anemones or sea slugs. Her song is great, tugs on the heartstrings a little to hear both twins in the theme. I was a little disappointed at first to find out there was no new armor set, but the Storm Soul skill from upgrading the old sets is pretty cool. In the end, I probably would have disliked the armor design anyway, given the other two. I think she deserves 5 stars, the best of both monsters.
Number 79, Ebony Odogaron. Odogaron is already excellent. Now he's purple and has the dragon element, which makes him even cooler. Also super challenging and fun to hunt. With most monsters in Master Rank being fast, the gimmick has to change to keep Odo unique. And I think leaning towards agility and repositioning between attacks was the best option. Really makes you wise up and start paying attention to the moveset more. 5 out of 5. I honestly think it's more the same, but with some projectiles. The same is great, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of lackluster in my opinion. Still a great monster though, 4 out of 5. Ebony is, in my opinion, the most unnecessary monster in the entirety of the Iceborne roster. The dragon element mechanic feels a little slapped on, his ecology is just a bit less interesting than Deviljho, and the whole invader mechanic falls apart when he can be picked up and eaten by real invaders. If I want to fight Odogaron, I'll fight the original. If I want to fight an acrobatic dragon-powered dog, I'll go fight Stygian. If I want to fight a dragon-breathing, starving invader that terrorizes your hunts, I'll fight Deviljho. Everything that's positive about this monster is something the OG Odogaron already has. Frustrates me, because Odogaron is one of my favorite monsters, and they have given him such a boring and uninteresting subspecies. I remember spotting Ebony for the first time from a distance in the Elder's Recess on my first Iceborne playthrough, and because of how much I like the normal Odo, you can bet I got excited. But when I got to fight him, I found his fight to be a bit annoying because of all the repositioning moves. I probably would have rated him 4 stars back then, but I refought him recently to see if my opinion had changed, and it actually has. It probably just me being a little bit better at the game now, but I don't find him to be that annoying anymore. Like Desert Celta's Queen, he feels almost more like a variant than a subspecies, because Dragon Element doesn't add all that much to his fights. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Apparently he was designed with the goal of making Odogaron a longer hunt, since the devs thought that normal Odogaron died way too quick, and I think they achieved that goal pretty well, with his hit zones being lower across the board until you break them. Not the most interesting subspecies in my opinion, especially by 5th gen standards, but just because of how little the Dragon Element actually does for the fights. But come on, they made Odogaron even edgier by making him black. I think he still deserves 5 stars along with the regular Odogaron just for being solid all around, even if his fight took me a little bit of time to warm up to. Ebony Odogaron is great as is, but I'd argue has even more potential. The cutscene where he kills a regular Odo is one of the spookiest and most badass cutscenes in the game, and I love how it can appear in any locale, acting as a stronger, hungrier Odo that's far more of a hunter and a prowler than a scrappy scavenger, but I'd argue its fight and power level needs a bit of a boost. I honestly want Ebony Odo to be in that near Elder Dragon tier, just underneath Joe and Rajang and Basil, etc. It'd be a really fun addition to this invader type monster, as this dark aggressive scavenger turns into a ruthless hunter, nomadically going wherever he will to get a quick meal, but have it lean more into that scavenger opportunist role compared to the brutal gluttonous warpath that is something like a Deviljho. That could be kinda sick. Number 78, Ukanlos. Ukanlos is so peak. I adore this big, scary goofball. He looks terrifying and a bit silly at the same time. I adore his fight. The swim move is terrifying, and I love dealing with it, even if it's a tiny bit jank. Need I mention that incredible theme? It's actually so good. Probably my favorite theme from the 2nd generation. His design just works. The yellow eyes and mostly white body look super nice and definitely make him very very intimidating. The Polar Field is a really cool arena map for him, and the name Polar Field is just sick. The shovel chin is simultaneously stupid and awesome. Urakan wishes his chin was as sick as Ukanlos's. I don't even know why I love Ukanlos this much, but I do. The White God gets 4.75 stars for a rounded up rank of 5. Congrats, big guy, you made it on my list. Editing this to add that is for you cutscene is also absolutely incredible. For an ice monster, his theme is fire. Fighting Ukanlos in multiplayer back in 4U was hella funny, because you can only just really watch and pray as the other hunters are running around the entire map so they don't get mowed down by the shark swimming attack. In my opinion, he is the best of the god wyverns. Ukanlos, despite being from the older games, is remarkably reactive and fun. His design is uniquely Monster Hunter, with that big shovel chin being such a great piece of design that manages to be not only great for his ecology, but surprisingly threatening in the fight itself. I hope he and his counterparts see the light of day again soon, especially with Wilds teasing bigger maps. 5 out of 5. Spoopy Ice Cream Scooper. Number 77, Qurupeco. Honestly, Qurupeco teaches you so much. This monster teaches you about sharpness levels, elements, hard to hit zones, and invader monsters all in one. 5 out of 5. One of my favorites, this one. I wish I could give him 6 stars, but I am forced to only give 5. He's got a great design and ecology, a good fight, good gear as well. Love the hammer, and a wonderful gimmick that sets him apart from the other bird wyverns. And said gimmick has given me many wonderful memories. He's an absolute icon, and it's a shame he hasn't appeared outside of 3rd gen. He is a top pick for Wilds in my eyes. I have no idea why Qurupeco hasn't returned. Qurupeco was one of the single best and most memorable early game monsters, and dare I say, one of the early game monsters with the biggest challenge factor, due to who and what Qurupeco can call on. He has a brilliant design, fight, and mechanics. He's just the GOAT. He has an amazing personality, a cool early game fight, great design, and awesome lore. He's just great. 5 out of 5. Not gonna lie, I'm a glimpse away from calling it one of the best monster designs ever. A giant frigate bird that can summon other monsters by mimicking them, buff itself, use its saliva and flints to ignite fires, and then he has this Amerindian dance inspiration mixed with the nuptial dance of birds. He can literally taunt you by twerking while he's successful in summoning. What an absolute brilliant combo of ideas. Number 76, Shah Dalamadur. Realistically, just G-rank Dalamadur, but it's a Dalamadur, so it's still pretty. Also, the golden color makes it look more kingly. This guy's technically a variant. It's just a newly molted Dalamadur, making him very aggressive and a lot hotter than a normal Dalamadur. But it is a Dalamadur, so it's pretty dang cool already, and big ups to its intro. Seeing that platform get eaten whole for the first time is insane. I'll admit, he looks cool, as he has a cool intro, and he gets points for being a Dalamadur. The heat thing is also pretty neat, but I don't know, I don't have a super strong feeling on Shah Dalamadur, so I'm gonna give him a 4. He's not quite as good as the original. I've got a soft spot for this thing. It's not really a subspecies, it's just a normal Dalamadur that shed its skin, like a reverse rusted Kushala Daora. And the fact that the heat produced by its body isn't contained by its new scales yet is a really cool idea to me. Both Dalas are a 5 out of 5 for me. Other than fire hazards and occasionally changing its attack patterns, Shah Dalamadur is the exact same as the regular. Though let's be real, it would be realistically difficult to try to make this thing more unique in battle in a way that wouldn't send the 3DS's systems to its knees. But that intro cutscene, though, is just pristine. Number 75, Frostfang Barioth. Pretty cool to have a variant that isn't just insert monster here, but super angry. Great design. I love that rhymed crystalline aesthetic to him. He's got a fun fight. I mean, naturally, he is a Barioth after all, but the Ice Breath Trap is a cool gimmick to base the fight around, considering it was something only used prior in Velkhana's fights, and only briefly. Shame that you can't fight him in the Guiding Land, seeing as you can fight Brute Tigrex there. The icing on the cake, however, is his gear. He might have some of the best armor designs in the entire series, especially that beta set. And his weapons are very fashionable too. Helps that they are generally tied for the best ice elemental weapons in the game, making them solid choices to bring to Fire Elatrion. Great monster, 5 out of 5. I always like the idea of monsters getting more dangerous as they age, and Frostfang does this perfectly, freezing you in place instead of creating tornadoes and using the leap slam twice. He also looks way cooler and has better gear. In summary, they took a monster I already like and made it better. 5 stars. I don't know what to say about it. Cool design that really looks like a strong, experienced Barioth. One of my favorite variant designs, actually. What I'm gonna say is that I hope we get more variants for monsters that already had a subspecies. 4 stars, I guess. I don't know, people talking so good about it, I've nothing to complain about either, so I guess I'm just gonna bump it to 5 stars, actually. Frostfang Barioth is a great reinvention of a beloved monster. He looks badass. His armor is not only great skill-wise, but it just looks as badass as him. His weapons also look awesome, and are very good for elemental damage. His fight also offers a pretty good challenge. You actually have to pay attention to his Ice Breath, because it can slow you down like Velkhana's mini AoE into the tail spike attack that she has. Gonna be honest, I actually like Frostfang Barioth more than the regular Barioth, personally. He's easily a 5 out of 5 monster design for me. Some people hate this variant, and I don't get it. I like monsters that age to the point that they're able to be classified as variants. I think Frostfang is more interesting than his base version in Iceborne. I like his greater reliance on ice attacks, and the addition of a double pounce when he's enraged to go alongside his new ice floor attacks, complete with Velkhana's modified AI to combo one into the other, if you get stuck in the ice floor. Very cool armor, male and female, and you are given the best ice element weapons to fight Elatrion with, all only requiring you to beat the main story to have enough MR. 4 out of 5. Number 74, Nightcloak Malfestio. Malfestio is cool and all, but in my opinion, this is just better. First of all, I like the color scheme way more. When regular Malfestio spreads its wings, it can sometimes feel like it's just blue and nothing else, which, don't get me wrong, is the best color, but I'm just much prefer the contrast the red wings provide. Secondly, it can go invisible. I personally think this is the best invisibility effect the series has to offer. It doesn't just fade out of existence, but you can actually see the sparkles of the light refracting. All these changes make me like Nightcloak way more, and I already quite liked the original. In fact, writing this has made me want to actually go do the fight, so I'll have some more thoughts when I get back. Okay, now I fought it for a bit, and I have some more things to say. To start, I really like that the confusion powder doesn't last all that long. You have to dodge one move, and either you get it or you don't. The invisibility looks great as always, and it has some really cool new moves. That air spinning one reminds me of something. Anyway, Nightcloak is just better Malfestio for me, both in terms of design and fight. 5 out of 5. Absolutely excellent concept for the Owl Wyvern, taking the ambush to the next level with the invisibility gimmick. Also, what a color palette. That dark burgundy red takes the design from whimsical to just slightly unsettling and curious. Perfect for a dangerous variant and iconic as far as Gen specials go. Better than Hellblade, dare I say. 5 out of 5. I like the original fight, so I like the Deviant even more. That's how deviants work. I like this one's color scheme more. The fact that it's an even bigger, colossal owl further appetizes me. The varied, exclusive new tricks it gets makes him even more versatile and interesting to deal with. And his invisibility is extremely well employed. I especially enjoy dealing with that corkscrewing forward dash he comes out of invisibility with, and learning the movement pattern that leads to it was eye-opening. He softly lands sideways before striking very smoothly, and such a telegraph is distinct enough from his other behaviors that you can easily discern it and react in time if you have already learned the fight that much. Weapons and armor also, goddamn. How do you make one of my favorite monsters more interesting? By making him take a page out of Chameleos' book. He turns invisible and steals your items, and his color scheme does do him favors. Initially in Generations Ultimate, I wasn't the biggest fan of most of the deviants. He is an exception. 5 stars, would say the 3rd best deviant overall. Number 73, Tetsucabra. Tetsu is a very solid introduction to the amphibian class. The boulder gimmick is fun. I like how it teaches you about shifting weak points, with it causing most weapons to bounce off of his head. Instead, you need to shift your attacks towards his tail, which will change color to bright white to clue you in that that is now a weak spot. The uprooting of boulders onto the ground is also a fun use of terrain control. Tetsu also has a very prominent part break, weakening pretty much every single one of his boulder attacks if you're able to break the tusk. tusks. Their ability to instantly drain your stamina is cool in concept, though I do wish it played a little bit more into the fight. Apart from that, Tetsu is simply a really good early game fight with a great gimmick attached. Also, there's a baby one. 4 out of 5, Froge. Possibly the best early game monster ever. Striking color scheme, cool equipment, interesting low-level gimmick, he's got it all. Tetsu was one of the first monsters I deliberately wanted to call my favorite based on appearances alone. He's such a cool looking dude, and kind of the poster boy for the amphibians everywhere. I wish there was more of them, but all the ones we have are really solid. He does a great job at teaching early 4 and 4U players about dynamic part breaks, and sometimes how to gain the advantage if you put yourself at risk by going for his tusk breaks. 4 out of 5, keep it going, King of the Frogs. Absolutely oozing with personality. Cranky, grumpy, personality. Excellent divergence in base animal group. It feels weird that Tetsucabra is such a low-ranking monster. To me, it could have easily been in the same tier as Zamtrios. The design is pretty good, fairly basic toad shape with the massive tusks that are pretty memorable, nothing too special, but great nonetheless. Tetsu's fight is also pretty great, with some fun mechanics. The rock digging is a fun gimmick, and the tail becoming a weak spot is super fun to play around. The body slam catches me off guard a lot more than it probably should, but it's still a really fun attack. Not much to say aside from that. Tetsucabra is just a solid monster all around and would be a pleasant addition to Wilds. 4 out of 5. Number 72, Great Jaggi. He did what the drones did, but actually felt like a pack leader. He's a good beginner monster, and he's simple, and I love the little fella. Literally too powerful to be frenzied. But in all seriousness, I much prefer the dog wyverns to the drone wyverns. Their stockier design makes them look more like a threat. My favorite introductory monster in the series. Great Jaggi has a really iconic design with his distinct colors and his head frill. The way it fights with smaller monsters of its species is really interesting, and the way it uses whoops and howls to direct them conveys a lot of personality. I'd really like to see it come back. I like it a lot. There's something about Great Jaggi that just feels special. Memes aside, I mean it. There's something about this one that stands out as particularly good, and I can't put my finger on it. Maybe it's the bias from being my first large monster, maybe it's the design, which I am incredibly fond of, or maybe there's something about the fight. Regardless, Great Jaggi gets a 4.2, rounded to 4. Literally in my top 10 monsters of all time. He really stands out among other pack leader monsters in both design and fight. And his pack call noise is so sick. He was the first large monster I ever fought, so of course part of my love comes from nostalgia, but also I just genuinely love this monster so much. I need a plush of him to be made like yesterday. Number 71, Rakna-Kadaki. Such a cool spider monster. This and Pyre have such great interactions with the little ones, and they're so neat with how their silk works. I never knew that you could cut the silk with weapons to knock her over until I saw Rage Gaming make a video on it. I especially love the color palette. The white and purple go so well together. I'm really glad Rakna exists. It had been like 8 years since the last spider, and world was essentially Wyvernland. But here she is, revealed in the first trailer no less. On top of that, the fight is really creative. Coordinated baby attacks, changing states depending on the supply of webs and deployable babies. That's awesome. I will admit that I like Nerscylla more visually, but taking everything into account, they're on pretty much equal footing. A great addition to Rise and a fantastic sign for Temnocerans in the future. Rakna-Kadaki is a silly spider, and you know my bug-loving self adores her. The design is lovely. Being a spooter already gets her points, of course. The silk gown is just fantastic. Just good all around. Great colors, too. However, the fight is where Rakna really shines. The use of silk is fun and creative, especially combined with her little baby spiders, who I forget the names of, and the fire she spews. The two phases are distinct and keep the fight from getting stale, even if I think the first one is very clearly better. An easy 5 out of 5. Rakna is my favorite base Rise monster, and one of my favorite monsters in general. While I would prefer her cousin Nerscylla to return over her, I would never complain about seeing her in Wilds. The series needed more spider monsters badly, and Rakna is another excellent attempt at it. Great design, pretty interesting fight, and extremely unique gimmick with it using its own babies as wire bugs for herself. It's all very well done. An incredibly well executed monster that to me represents the return of variety after World had a lot of samey skeletons. I was worried that the series might stick to that, but the second I saw Rakna for the first time, any worries had disappeared. On top of that, Rakna is a very good fight in design as well. Rakna-Kadaki is amazing. 5 stars from me. Number 70, Silverwind Nargacuga. 5 stars. Call an ambulance, but not for me. It's one of the better base game deviants. A Nargacuga that simply reached old age, and somehow now can move his wing blades and tail so fast, it creates wind currents that not only deal damage, but also bleed, of all things. A simple yet effective ecology with great execution. While I prefer Lucen's color and fight, Silverwind's fur patterns and equipment are superb. Grandpa's got hands, damn. Honestly, he's a really cool monster. The color scheme is exquisite, the hunt has an interesting gimmick with the wind blades, all around a great monster. 5 out of 5. Gales of wind sharp as razors, always nice. My only legitimate complaint is that he moves around way too much. Capturing this one is a nightmare. Silverwind is one of those monsters who is really cool in concept, however I feel the execution could have been pulled off a little better. An old Nargacuga capable of moving fast enough to be able to weaponize blades of wind, while a bit anime, makes for a fun gimmick to add to the fight. However, Silverwind has an annoying habit of just hopping away from you and spamming the wind projectiles from a distance, which can be really annoying, especially if you have a slower weapon. However, there is still a lot to like about him, such as their homing tail spikes, their fake out tailspin that they can perform in G rank. Plus, I feel that they utilize bleed a lot better than Iceborne Narga does, namely by tying it to a lot more of his moves. Nowhere near a bad deviant, probably one of the best ones in base generations, just needs a little bit of fine tuning. 4 out of 5 for Old Manacuga. 5 out of 5 for me. I'm personally the biggest fan of the color. Close second would be Lucent Nargacuga. I really like that this one can flick its tail to shoot bladed wind at you. Really no flaws with this one. Number 69. Nice. Risen Chameleos. Our first Risen Elder Dragon, and a strong opening for the category. Honestly, all the Risen Elders are awesome, and I love them. Talking about Chameleos specifically though, the scarring all over its body conveys the hardened and more savage nature of the Risens. Then, when it powers up into its Risen state, the gorgeous orange glow looks absolutely fantastic. Risen Chameleos adds some excellent new attacks to the fight. The intensity is higher, as the Risen Dragon is far more vicious and aggressive. The foundation of deadly poison it spews makes for great area denial, especially when combined with the poison streams with massive range. Chameleos was already a good fight in Rise, but Risen Chameleos is a big step up. 5 stars. Definitely my favorite of the Risen monsters, which are, as a group, a fantastic set. The orange contrasts great with the purple, and he even looks sick when not in the Risen state. The white scales and black scars separating them really help to make Chameleos look even more like a phantom. In terms of the fights, where can I even begin? It's probably my favorite in the entirety of Sunbreak, turning who is arguably the easiest Elder Dragon in the game into an actual menace. More poison, more invisibility. It's just more Chameleos than anyone could have asked for, and I love it. The orange mist during the Risen state is sick, and if you haven't, I highly recommend fighting the Anomaly or Hazard version of this fight. Probably the most difficult incarnation of Chameleos in any game, and an absolutely sick fight. 5 out of 5. The personality shift rules. The scarring looks awesome, and the new poison explosions are hardcore, but also tasteful. Risen plays with your expectations in really interesting ways, and I kinda love that about it. Like, the animation for a move you know will start up, and all of a sudden a new poison blast is coming from a different direction that you don't recognize. The personality still being fun, but with a bit more of a grizzled edge is pretty cool too. I don't know, there's honestly not that much to say. It is a beautiful upgrade to a monster. I do wish that Chameleos would get his own personal subspecies or variant or something along those lines at some point. It would be really cool to have a color shifting one who's got a form focused on using each of its strengths to the max, denoted by whatever color it's in at the moment. But yeah, no, anyway, 5 out of 5. Risen Chameleos was a surprise to me when it was first revealed as the first of the Risen Elders. Risen Chameleos is one of the weaker ones, but it is still excellent. The design is simple, just regular Chameleos with black and orangey reds. Like the Apexes, this design is followed by all the Risens, and the quality depends on the monster. Chameleos' one is solid. The fight is great, with the expanded poison moves. In specific, the explosions are wonderfully fun. The invisibility is used to good effect, and the Risen state itself is quite enjoyable. A really good all-around tougher Chameleos, a great introduction to this wonderful monster class, 5 out of 5. Chameleos is already cool as is, and Risen Chameleos is just a turbocharged version of him. Very enjoyable monster to fight.